Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting for Reading, Ohio, a regular session on April 6th, 2001. Please join me in a prayer in our pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and
to the republic for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Gertz?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Albrecht?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Fischescher?
Here.
Mrs. Edichico?
Here.
Apologies for the agenda coming out kind of late. I had it actually out pretty early and got it over to the website, which they did put it on the website, so you can look in the future to the website for the agenda. It's on the government page under council meetings, and it's the top link. Did everybody have a chance to get their agenda? I mailed it to you about an hour ago.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
if you're
Carla
looking for the
sent
agenda,
it also.
okay, I didn't realize she had sent it.
You know, I did send,
Okay.
Chris, I sent another ordinance out last Thursday and it didn't end up on the agenda. I don't know what happened to that.
It's on there.
Well,
It's on there.
I'm not sure it is or not. These are all
That's a
second
different
readings
one.
here.
We'll have to.
Yeah, we'll have to add that. I did get this sent out before Thursday, and it probably didn't come to me for me to add it to here. And Carla was just sending out what I had because I wanted to get it to the website and get it on online. So we have a little bit of a hiccup here, not getting that ordinance in. But if you want to make a motion to add that ordinance, Mr. Gertz, go right ahead.
Okay, at the right time, I will.
Is that the
Okay.
one for the wage increases, Tony?
For the non-bargaining people,
Yeah.
I did it differently than what service.
I'll second it.
Yeah, I got it. It's
Okay.
been sent.
Well, okay. There was no motion to second yet.
I'll second the motion.
There was no first.
I was going to make the motion, Randy, when it came time for the ordinances, but I can do it now if you want, whatever you want to do. I'll make the motion and
I was just gonna.
go. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's fine. We can wait.
Okay.
Okay, so after roll call, I'll go to approval of minutes. Unless there's any objection, the minutes for the council meeting on March 16th, a regular session, are approved as they were distributed. No objections. Those minutes are approved. And now with this, if you look at the government page again on the website, you'll see that the council minutes have a special link. All of the minutes from 2020 are up to date, signed, and approved. And now all the meetings through last week are approved. As soon as they're signed, it'll be updated on the website for the 16th. Audience participation, I don't believe there's anyone. Is that correct, ICRC, Tim? No one registered?
No attendees.
I didn't see anyone. Okay, so then we will go on to reading of any communications. I think we have two here that I would ask the clerk to go ahead and read.
We do have two. I've got two letters to read. I also had something from the Ohio Ethics Commission, a filing reminder for everyone here on this council, just to remind you all that the filing deadline is Monday, May 17th, 2021. So just wanted to let you all know that I had that in my mailbox for a reminder for you all. The first, hold on one sec. Here we go. The first is a letter that Mr. Lindeman received concerning residential recycling. And it reads, Mr. Lindeman, I saw on a replay of the city council meeting that you were talking about maybe putting an issue on the ballot to make residential recycling a mandatory program for all Reading residents. And you asked for feedback on that. So here's my feedback. For years, we have collected our recyclable items into brown paper grocery bags, and about every 6 to 8 weeks, when I'm going out to run errands, I load the bags into the car and drop them off at the big metal Rumpke recycling containers they have made available to the public. So I am able to recycle essentially at no cost, and in a way that works well for me. I heard someone at the council meeting say that those big metal recycling containers for the public are generally pretty full. So clearly I am just one of many people who choose to recycle in this way. So I am very much opposed to any attempts to try to institute a mandatory residential recycling program and forcing myself and others to pay for something that we can now do for free. It also seems to me that trying to make the recycling program mandatory is taking things a step too far. While it is nice to have the recycling program available for those who want to participate in it, I don't see it as rising to the level of something that should be required of us. Since I think participation should be a matter of individual choice, I think each resident should be left to choose for him or herself whether or not to participate, but I think it is inappropriate for him or her to choose for anyone else. You mentioned that there are costs to the city to add or remove someone for recycling. If there are concerns about these costs, I think it is appropriate to seek to defray them by charging a one-time setup or service discontinuation fee to those who choose to join or leave the program. Another option would be to spread the cost among those who choose to participate in the program by including the cost in determining the monthly recycling fee. I know I'm watching the council meetings over the years that recycling is a cause that is near and dear to your heart. I'm not opposed to recycling. It is something we have done for years, but I am strongly opposed to making it mandatory and also to making this a ballot issue. I think you would agree that different people see things differently, and I would guess that you probably don't like having other people foist their ideologies on you any more than the rest of us do. From what you said, it sounds like there is already a good participation rate in the residential recycling program. I hope you can be glad for that. Allow those who choose to recycle via the residential recycling program to do so, and allow those of us who want to choose differently to make our own choices as well. And I don't have a signature on it.
Chris, if I might, ordinarily I would not entertain a letter that is not signed, but in speaking with people about this issue, a number of them have expressed that same opinion, that they're all about recycling, but they would prefer to bundle their recycling up and take it down to the dumpsters versus having it picked up at the curb. So that's the only reason. I wish that the person that wrote the letter would have signed it, but that's the only reason I asked for it to be read. Thank you. Thank you, Carla.
No problem. The second is a letter dated March 22nd of 2021 from the Reading Community City School District, Jason Enoch, Superintendent. It reads, members of Reading City Council and Administration. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and Board of Education of Reading Community City Schools, I would like to acknowledge Fire Chief Todd Owens and members of the department for their service and collaboration to our school district during the recent COVID-19 vaccination clinics. We are grateful for the opportunity to have partnered with our local fire departments as part of the state's effort to vaccinate and educate the education sector of the population. School districts throughout the state were able to partner with health networks, local pharmacies, or other entities receiving vaccine doses to distribute. When Hamilton County Public Health assisted in coordinating our vaccinations with Chief Owens and the fire department, we could not have been more fortunate. Chief Owens worked diligently with Nurse Sandlin and myself to schedule the vaccination clinics in our campus around a snow event and at a time of day so that we could avoid loss of instruction and learning. Unlike many districts that closed for vaccination and staffing impacts from side effects, our CCSD was able to stay in session throughout this process. We cannot speak highly enough of the pandemic staff administering the vaccines and the efficient, friendly demeanor in which 159 teachers, coaches, aides, cafeteria workers, custodial and maintenance staff, office personnel, and administrators were able to receive both doses of the vaccine. We are very thankful for this collaboration and look forward to recognizing Chief Owens and the Reading Fire Department at an upcoming Board of Education meeting in the near future. Thank you. Sincerely, Jason Enix, Superintendent, Reading Community City Schools.
Thank you. Carla, in that last correspondence that was added, and can you give me a summary of that so I can add it to the agenda so we know it was there?
At the Ohio Ethics Commission filing reminder?
Yes, okay, letter from the Ohio Ethics Department filing reminder. And that was May 17th, you said, right?
Filing deadline, Monday, May 17th, 2021. Here, I'll just says, Dear County official, you are receiving this letter because you are currently serving or have served at some point in 2020 or 2021 in a county elected office. Ohio law requires that all individuals serving for any amount of time in 2020 or 2021 in such positions file a calendar year 2020 financial disclosure statement. The filing deadline is Monday, May 17th, 2021, unless you are filing for any of the following reasons. If you were appointed to an unexpired term in 2021, you are required to file a 2020 financial disclosure statement within 15 days of being sworn in. If you will be a candidate in 2021 for the same office or any other elected office, which would require you to file a calendar year 2020 financial disclosure statement and are certified to a ballot prior to May 17th, 2021, you are required to file 30 days, 20 days for a write-in candidate before the first primary, special, or general election when your name will appear on the ballot. If you are not certified to a ballot prior to May 17th, 2021, you must file by May 17th, 2021.
All right, thank you very much. There are no calls in for an executive session. We will go to council committee reports. Finance Chairman, Mr. Gertz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have a lot tonight. I've got another commitment I'd like to make a little later. But a couple of things I do want to comment before I get into my report at all. We did lose a renowned citizen in the city. Britt Engel on Walnut Street passed away this past week at the young age of 94, and she was many of you may know that she was a member of the Lohmeller family, and I think probably in the 1930s or somewhere along in there. Her father, I believe, was a safety service director at one time for the city of Reading. So with a lot of sympathy we extend to all of the Engel family, McEngel's family, who passed away a few years back, to Rita and her family, that loss. And I don't know when, with the COVID and that, I don't know how they're handling the funeral arrangements, and I haven't gotten any information on that. I'd also like to comment on something that we were talking about recycling. I thought was interesting. Mr. and Mrs. Pat Orman up in Maplewood subdivision. I don't know if you ever noticed. I communicated with them recently, but in response to that communication and to Don, they're the people you may see out walking and picking up trash. Denny and I talked about this many years ago, and his father, my dad, and all those, they used to sweep up the curbs, and we used to talk, if Denny would remember, if everybody did what they were supposed to do and cutting their grass and taking care of the front of their properties, you probably wouldn't need a street sweeper because everybody had the respect and honor to take care of their own properties. But Mr. and Mrs. Orman, I want to compliment them, especially recently. I don't know if anybody noticed, it was a Sunday a week ago, I think it was. They went all the way up from around Hill Street to the top of the hill and picked up 4 huge bags of garbage and debris and paper and so forth that were along the weeds there. And I'm glad to say and compliment Mr. Courtney, our Chief of Public Works. He communicated with them so they can get these. They don't have to haul it all the way back to Maplewood. They take walks and do this, and they put the bags out. And he actually provided them, I think, with some yellow vests so people can see them. You know, so I want to compliment them for the work they're doing in our community, and if all of us, I guess, would, along with what Don's talking about with recycling and that, we could keep our own community in a more attractive and aesthetic fashion. But as far as my report, I did receive from Sabrina, and she sent out, I do appreciate her monthly report. We are looking solid financially, I would say, in the various funds. Still need to evaluate some of the monies. For instance, we have $108,000, I think, now in the stadium fund. I'm not sure how that's going to be spent or appropriate. There is no appropriation because we haven't received anything, a permanent appropriation, that is. We haven't received anything that I know of from the Budget Commission. At least I wasn't advised by the Safety Service Director or anything. So I'm hoping that we get that, because our temporary appropriation does expire at the end of this month, of course. But we are looking at least financially healthy, even with the things that are going on. I hope that they took that $2 trillion stimulus COVID thing that the Congress passed, and bank took paid off all of San Francisco, I'm told, and all of New York's debts. So maybe they'll come in and help us out to get rid of some of the debt we have. We do have some monies that are incurred for paying for the meters that we've now installed in the homes that the residents are paying monthly. And we also have another approximate $1 million, or a little less than that, probably 800,000. Now we took debt on for the ingress and egress of the areas around the new school. So, but now we're looking that we're in a healthy position for the most part. I don't want to steal any of Mel's thunder, but I'm pleased to say that I did look at his report, and that looks better than one might anticipate in these troubling times. So with that, I'm not going to belabor a lot more in my time, but if anybody wants to go over these in a later date, that's fine. Thank you for this.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Gertz. Utilities, Lands, and Buildings, Chairman, Mr. Lindeman. You're on mute, Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
Great.
A couple of things. Hunt Road is going to be closed for another week. They're progressing very well, but they're right in the middle of the road now. So I was told it's going to be another week before they can open that up. And if you've been around the city at all, you notice that Duke Energy is well on its way of digging holes and putting pipe in. So it may be, the Supreme Court's decision may not be known for possibly another 2 months. So to keep updated on the pipeline in Reading, Safety Service Director, Mr. Ross, has been talking to the Duke employees weekly and will provide updated information on the website. So if you want to follow that a little closer, that would be where to get the best information. That's all I have, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you then, Mr. Lindeman. Zoning, Planning, and Environment, Chairman, Mr. Powell.
Before we go on, I wanted to.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Gertz.
Mr. Lindeman reminded me, I was talking to Mr. Ashbrook, Bob Ashbrook, last week, and he watched, he's quasi-retired. He watched you, Dave, present your arguments before the Supreme Court of Ohio. Of course, it was during the day and I'm working, so I didn't get a chance to watch it, but he had a lot of compliments and he said he thought you made a lot of good points. It was rather presumptuous for Duke to take the position that they went ahead and started construction before this hearing was concluded. But I wanted you to know that he, and those that watched that hearing said you did a very fine job for the city, and I want to compliment you too, and thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I did hear from Bob. If you want to watch it, you can go to the Supreme Court's website and click on the case, and it will, the oral argument will actually replay. The Supreme Court didn't issue a stay on this on the front end of it. That's why Duke's doing what they're doing. So we are where we are, and I think 2 months is optimistic on a decision. I think it'll probably be 3 or 4.
All right, thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Lindeman. We'll go to zoning, planning, and environment. Chairman, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Chris. I'd like to say thank you to the Safety Service Director for assistance with the road closure sign on Maple Drive. This is in conjunction with the MSD construction that was going on. A constituent had reached out to me and requested the sign to be moved to the intersection with Lori to keep drivers from having to turn around in residents' driveways. Another issue, I received an email from a citizen on Dottie Court voicing his oppositions to potentially eliminating parking on one side of the street. I look forward to going door to door with Randy in the future to discuss this with the potentially impacted residents. And then the final thing for this evening is I would like us as a council to set a goal for a date to be back in chambers. With the vaccines becoming more prevalent and more people getting it, I think it's appropriate to at least let's set a goal for when we would like to realistically be back in. So that's all that I have this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Any questions? Laws and contracts, Chairwoman.
Yeah, Dave,
Go ahead,
Dave.
Randy.
Yeah, Randy.
Dave, I've had a couple constituents contact me also with concern about the parking. I've tried to explain our end of it, but it will be an interesting discussion once we get up that way.
Yes, it will.
Now, I do have a little caveat for you also. I've been requested to be on grand jury, so I could be gone for the next few weeks. So I'll find out about that in about a week or so. But I'll get with you and try to get that knocked off at some point.
Okay, just let me know when it's convenient for you. So.
Okay.
Again, laws and contracts, Chairwoman, Ms. Edichico.
Thank you, Chris. First, I want to start with regarding an incident that happened a couple weeks ago outside my house. And I wanted to answer some questions that were asked by several people and remind everyone that, yes, the city does have leash laws. Section 618.01 in our Code of Ordinance explains these laws in detail. We seem to have a lot of dogs running loose in our city. And I don't know how we compare to other towns, or if we're just lucky enough to have citizens that take the time to mention them on our neighborhood pages. But either way, this does seem to be a problem. For those that are unaware, there was a woman that was walking a dog and 2 loose dogs attacked her and her dog. And it was posted on the community page. There was a lot of questions about that. I'm not condemning pet owners whose dogs get out of their yards. I understand. We had a beagle once that would dig under the fence and go on little adventures. So I know that some dogs are escape artists. I'm just asking that everyone check on their pets when they're outside. Make sure that gates are closed. Any places that they can get out are taken care of, and that dogs do have their collars on with the proper identification. Second, regarding the many comments and messages I received about the condition of the former Dow Roman Haas property, those who have used the detour through that property to get to the recycling bins have commented on the garbage and the items that look like they've been dumped and the general state of the area. For those that didn't see my Facebook post on my page regarding the site, I want to let everyone know that I did hear back from Patrick, and he is working on getting that area cleaned up. But please keep in mind that some of the debris is from the clearing and demolition of the buildings. The site is a brownfield site, so it will take some time to demo and clear and then be ready to develop. So it's currently owned by the Port Authority. It's not owned by the City of Reading. And lastly, regarding the rental properties and property maintenance issues, I would like to get a registration form up on the website before I move forward with an ordinance requiring owners to complete the form. This way the ordinance can immediately go into effect and the form will be easily available to property owners. And other than that, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Chris,
Go right ahead.
a comment. I appreciate Katie bringing that up again. I know Mr. Gertz has been pushing. As a matter of fact, he went as far as to say that they should probably put some kind of a fence up because it is a very dangerous area. I mean, he's been harping on that probably for a while. I'll let him speak. But it seemed like they're talking about it for a year.
I did drive back there, and there is some orange fencing up around the site and around a lot of the debris. There's some things that are kind of dumped outside of that. I don't know if that's been newly dumped, if somebody just threw it like it's a couch and there's cushions and stuff around and it looks like an old school desk or something thrown back there. I don't know if that's new or if that's been back there for a while, but it does look like most of the debris and mess is fenced off.
Well, I beg to differ with you. I've been back here too. I drive back there on a periodic basis. The extension of Riesenberg Lane back into there, I think was actually something we should have thought more about. I didn't support that manner that it was done. But I go back there periodically, and there are old vehicles, and they're not well covered like they're supposed to be. It's getting to be nothing but a junkyard. The company that owned it before stripped everything they could get financially off of the land and junked it and got their money worth out of it. And the buildings got broken windows. And Don's correct. I have been thinking and saying and talking, and that now I don't want to inhibit the development of the property, but at the same time, it's an attractive nuisance, in my opinion. It's a place that could easily be used to conduct nefarious actions by people. It's an building that is, I think, easily accessible to get into, and they need to fence the place off and put up a gate and not allow anybody back in there. But again, I don't want to inhibit the development. But at the same time, this has been like this for now going on 2 years, and we're not getting anywhere, in my opinion. Thank you for bringing it up, Don.
It looks like there are two businesses.
I'm kind of glad that.
Go ahead, Randy. Hold on.
I'm kind of glad that they haven't fenced it off yet, considering the fact that it's the only way we can get to the stadium, to the field house, and the recycling bins right now. And they were gracious enough to allow the city to use their property while the road is being torn up. I agree with Katie. Not a lot of it, but some of the stuff there has been obviously dumped by residents, because I don't think that, having toured Merrill or Morton when they were there, I don't recall ever seeing couches and bedding in their buildings. It's a demolition, as it was pointed out. It's a brownfield site. The cars that Mr. Gertz talks about are not actually on the Port Authority's property, I don't believe. I believe those are on the old drum factory property, still owned by the Long brothers. And, having dealt with them for years, they can be quite challenging. But in the long run, I think that property is going to be a great investment and a great positive thing for this city.
Well, I don't disagree with you, and I think that you can fence it, still have ingress and egress by allowing occasions where you can let somebody go in and out of there. And if that's going to be the case, then let Duke police it correctly by having, they've got a lot of people working in that regard anyway around town. And don't assume that our residents are the ones doing all the dumping back there. I think it's a handy spot for anybody that's within any kind of the vicinity of 4 or 5 miles of Reading can find a spot like that and throw debris and garbage, and we end up with it. And then we got, somebody has to get rid of it. And I agree with you. I know the Long brothers, we dealt with them when we had the pristine problem, 25 years ago. But nevertheless, just because they're difficult to deal with doesn't prevent us from enforcing the laws. And looking for Chief Holmeyer back in the time when we had our conflict with Pristine. He's the one that actually got the state of Ohio EPA to get into the act of stopping that whole contamination process. And I give him much credit, and Greasehaber at the time, Danny Greasehaber, and the fire department, all of you fellows, because I recall going back when he was walking around to some of that property, he was wondering whether the material that was on his boots was going to eat away the leather and the rubber because it was such a mess. So really, that fire department and enforcing the laws, and I know it came before us in mayor's court at that time to put enforcement into cleaning up the pristine spot. And the Long brothers owned all that land at that time, if you remember that. It was on, it's regularly an ignorant to call it pristine by the guy, I forgot his name.
Kinman.
Dr.
Dr. Kinman.
Hey, one of the professors at UC created pristine, and Ohio, Ohio State of Ohio, EPA allowed them to operate that facility. And thanks to Bob Holmeyer and Dan Grease, our department at that time, we brought him into mayor's court and really shook everything up. Until then, the federal EPA got involved. Well, that's water over the dam. But anyway, enforcing the law doesn't, you can't just say because they're trouble to deal with, you got to do it.
Mr. Chico.
I was just pretty much what Randy said. There seems to be 2 businesses that are operational back there, and the abandoned cars in that are back. I suppose that's the Long brothers property. They're back there. They're not part of the old, I call it the old Roman Haus site. That is the part that's fenced off with the orange fencing. And then the roadway that comes off of West Street is fenced off after, or actually before you can even go further back into the building. It's pretty much just one road that you can drive through back there to get to the recycling bins. So otherwise, right now we have no way to get back there. I know there's soccer and baseball practices going on by Hafey right now, and that's how people have to get through to there too, because the roads are all closed. So there's no other choice to get around that right now. You have to drive through that area.
All I'm saying is that Duke got to police it.
Okay. It's because they've closed the roads off. That's why you're saying they should police it. Is that
Sure.
fair to say?
They're creating
Okay.
an environment of needing to do this.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood that. Thank you, Ms. Chico. No other comments from anyone. We'll go to Public Health and Safety Chairman, Mr. Fishesher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the monthly reports for March for both fire and police. Fire department for the month of March, they made 182 EMS responses and 46 fire responses, 13 of which were all calls, for a total of 228 responses. Police for the month of March had 1,190 calls for service, 29 auto accidents, 152 total charges filed, with 156 being original charges. That can't be right. Citations issued, 23 to Arlington Heights Court, 11 to Hamlin County Court, 1 to Juvenile Court, and 116 to the Reading Mayor's Court for a total of 152 citations. Over the past month, officers have had 12 OVIs, several with loaded firearms in their possession, and at least 4 overdoses, one of which was fatal. Both OVIs and overdoses have seemed to be kicking into high gear over the last month. So just be aware that things are starting to pick up. Highlights for the last 2 weeks of March for police operations. On the 17th, they had a subject arrested for assault after punching a female in the face on Walnut Street. We had a stolen vehicle on West Crest. That investigation is continuing. There was an auto accident on the 21st involving a stolen vehicle. The driver fled, and that investigation is also ongoing. On the 23rd, Mr. Likens reported his employee was stealing electricity. Warrants were filed on him. On the 28th, there was a stolen firearm on Jefferson Avenue. That investigation continues. And then on the 1st of April, the father of a two-year-old took the child without permission of the mother. The child was located and returned to the mother, and the father was arrested. And on the 3rd, on East Benson, report of a female attempted to burn a vehicle, and that is still being investigated. The detectives are investigating thefts from Family Dollar. The owner of the vehicle that was the drive-away has been identified. There was a menacing by stalking suspect identified after sending lewd pictures to the victim. That subject has been charged and arrested. And then an auto accident from August 16th, 2020 that involved a cruiser has been completed. The subject has been charged and admitted to being the driver of the vehicle that struck the cruiser. Personnel, David Reddington started his FTO program as a new officer on March 29th. And Patrolman Roth will be returning to duty on April 14th, 2021. And finally, all 3 new cruisers are now in service. And that's all I have. Okay. So we'll move on. Anybody have any questions?
Wake up, Chris.
Oh, that was me. I was on mute. I am sorry. Thank you, Mr. Fishesher. We will go to service. Chairman, Mr. Ulrich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was able to meet with the Safety Service Director to discuss the Service Committee meeting report that I made available to everybody a couple weeks ago. We did decide to ask the Civil Service Commission to administer a test for a mechanic with the hopes that possibly by the middle of June, we might be able to offer a job to someone if that's okay with the administration, et cetera. Obviously, it takes some time to get the test together, to grade it, to interview people, and eventually hire that person. So we're hoping for maybe mid-June, all things being equal and everything working out well. We did talk about the various vehicles and equipment that was listed in the report. We talked about possible ways of funding the purchase of these things, and also the which would be, the most important to get, et cetera. We again, there are some various funds that could be tapped to purchase some of the things because of where the vehicle or the equipment would be used, especially like the water fund. We did talk about the possibility of either renting or contracting or sharing a street sweeper There is a company called Contract Sweepers that will come in and do the sweeping for you based upon what it is that you want. So that would be something, obviously the $275,000 is a rather large purchase. And so we need to look at that a little bit more. We also discussed the possibility of taking out some kind of a bond or whatever, like we've done in the past to do that. So we'll need to talk with Mr. Gertz and the mayor and Patrick some more to try to get these things going in the right direction, and hopefully providing for the service department the vehicles and the equipment that they need to do the work that they're entrusted to do. So it was a good meeting, and hopefully things will proceed now, and we'll get going and get some of these things bought and purchased and made available. And that's it.
Danny, I have a quick question. Actually, I don't know if it's for you or Tom, but how do we go about making sure that all the restrooms are unlocked at all the parks and facilities, and that now that there's baseball and soccer practices?
Well, obviously, they have to close them down for winterization, so they're opening them right now. That's part of my report. So they're working on opening them now in April. They start opening them. Usually it's after the tax day when they start opening all of them, because then all the frost is done, so they can start opening the bathrooms. So they're working on that now.
A lot of times I know, like at Voorhees, they keep those things locked because so many kids are in there vandalizing them, and it's almost like you got to call up the police department, have them come down and open it when you have an affair there. So I know that's been the case in the past, where if you've got a meeting or something down there, you might have to call the police to open them up for whatever it is that you're doing. I don't know if they keep them open all the time. So
Yeah, I heard from a couple of people that the ones at Hayfie were locked last night, and there was little fellas that were practicing that had to go to the bathroom and couldn't. So.
yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chico. And Recreation, Mr. Lynn.
Thank you very much. I just want to report that the Easter egg hunt was very well attended, and the weather was very nice, so that probably helped. But I want to thank everybody who worked it. The event went off very well, so thank you everybody who participated in that. As we talked about earlier, the bathrooms at the parks will be opening soon. The soccer and baseball fields have been worked on and are ready to be used. So I also want to report that the Reading Cleanup Day is scheduled for April 17th. So we would like to get as many volunteers to come down and help on April 17th. There have been comments on Facebook about St. Peter and Paul Cemetery on Reading Road. So on April 17th is the time to come and help clean that up also. So if you want to bring a rake or anything like that, you can actually report to St. Peter and Paul Cemetery at 10 o'clock, or you could come to Cannock Park at 10 o'clock, and you'll be signed different streets and different areas where you can do cleanup there. So again, it'll all start at 10 o'clock on April 17th, and then around noon, if you come back to Cannock Park to the small shelter, there'll be snacks and different things that you can get for helping with the cleanup. Again, we try this one day, April 17th cleanup, but as Mr. Gertz talked about earlier, just everybody should do that on a daily basis. Try to keep your area clean, because that just keeps the community better off. Poll signups are May 8th, 15th and 22nd, 10 to noon at Hayfie Fieldhouse. The poll will be open Saturday, June 5th, starting at noon. So far, we've got no details from the Board of Health on the restrictions. Concessions are planned to be open this year. And no matter what, we'll just follow what we did last year if we don't have any instructions from the Board of Health. The Memorial Day Parade and Festival are a go this year. So right now they plan on making that happen. The festival is scheduled to happen between May 28th and the 31st. The parade will be on Memorial Day at 9 a.m. So back to traditions. Life's all about traditions, things you can count on. So when those things return, life's getting back to normal. So Memorial Day Parade is always a tradition that Reading had, and it's good to see it come back. The Legion Festival is also scheduled for June 25th through the 27th. The fireworks will actually be on June 27th. I know that's a little weird. It'll start at 10 o'clock p.m., but the fireworks will be on June 27th. Basically, the Legion doesn't want to compete with other cities on July 4th and their fireworks, so we'll do it a little earlier on June 27th, and Reading will have a good party, and hopefully everybody attends that Legion Festival. So basically, that's all I have my reports. Is there any questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Lynn. New business, any new business that anyone wants to bring up that we can discuss and then assign to a committee?
Chris,
Go ahead.
the plans for the Thornridge Drive project are available for review now. They're in the council chambers. If anybody wants to take a look at them, they're there for your review.
Okay, so, and they should stay there, right? Don't take them home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Denny, do you know if there's going to be any further citizen input about that when they review that, or is that just already going to go to bid and be done with it?
I think it's supposed to go to bid at the end of this month.
Okay. Okay, no other business. We'll go to reports of officials. Law Director, Mr. Stevenson.
I have no formal report. I gave what I was going to say earlier, so there's no need to repeat it.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Stevenson? Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Treasurer, Mr. Gertz.
Let me get off of mute here. I did send out a copy of the report to everybody. It was around between 6:30 and 7 o'clock this evening, but I'll do a brief overview for the month of March. For individual residents' income taxes, we collected $127,171, $595.94 more than what we took in last March, which was good. So year to date, we're at $280,496, and we're running ahead 4.5%, which equates to almost $12,000 in that category. For business profits income taxes, we were behind for this month. We were way ahead last month, but we're behind for this month. We collected $23,641. And that was about almost $54,000 less than what we took in last March. Year to date, we're still running a little bit behind. In total, we've collected $94,476. So we're about 20% behind in that category. So we're about $24,000 shy of where we were through the end of March in 2020. For payroll withholding income taxes, we collected $413,361, was a little shy of where we were in March in 2020. We're running about $6,248 behind where we were at this time last year. But year to date, we're doing very well. We're sitting right now at $1,594,072. So we're running 7% ahead of where we were at this point last year, which equates to $103,866. So that was good news in that regard. So total income taxes collected for the month of March, $564,172, a little shy of the totals for last March by about $22,600, but year to date, we've been in $44. So we're running 4.9% ahead, which equates to $91,903. So far year to date, we are ahead of where we were last year. And so that's all I have in that regard tonight, but I will mention, if you haven't already heard it, and I don't know if they've updated our website yet, to be quite honest with you. They were trying to get Patrick to take care of that. But the filing for our Reading income taxes, once the state changed the filing to May 17th, we had to change ours to May 17th. So you have another month to file your Reading income taxes. We encourage people, though, to continue to file. We've been fairly steady in terms of helping people. You don't have to make an appointment to come into the office now. It's first come, first serve. You can mail in your forms. You can put them in the drop box outside. Call us 733-0300. We're more than willing to help you get those taxes and tax forms completed as efficiently as possible. So encourage everybody to keep that up and don't wait till the last minute, if you would. And that's all I've got for tonight.
Thank you for the good news, Mr. Gertz. And we'll go to Auditor
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Smith.
Thank you, Chris. I just wanted to let everybody know that we're already in April and all the account payable items are kind of set as we go through the year, whether it's lease obligations or any debt we have, as well as, you know, the monthly bills that carry forward, and all the department heads are working really hard to manage their budgets and their discretionary spending. So we're kind of, you know, almost halfway through the year. I can't believe saying that, for 2021. And there's a lot more audit items that need to be completed. They like to have it has to be done by the state of Ohio by May 31st, but our goal is to kind of have everything turned in the first week in May, so that way they can do any analysis or last minute questions they might have. So we're on our way for that. And those are all the updates I have for tonight, Chris. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Smith? Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any resolutions that need to be read? Any late resolutions? Okay, then we will go to the reading of ordinances. Do we have an ordinance that we want to add to agenda?
Yes, I'd like to add the ordinance that I drafted. Unfortunately, I don't have one in my possession at the moment, but it was sent out to everyone that instead of doing it with the exception, wording it in such a way that we would have an exception rather than do that, which we accepted the fire chief, police chief, and the assistant fire chief. It delineates specifically who's going to get paid from the non-bargaining group of people, and it breaks it out for the 3-year period. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to add it to the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Gertz, seconded by, I think, Mr. Albrecht, that was.
That's correct.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
Okay, we'll add that as our 4th ordinance for tonight. I do want to let the council members know that we are going to be trying to put out the agenda at least a week ahead so that the public can read it online, and copies can be put up around probably at the city hall, in the library. I do want to remind Mr. Gertz that I did not get a copy either of the ordinance, or I would have been able to put it on after you sent it. If you send it by Thursday the week before, it should get into the agenda. So if you've got either ordinances or resolutions you want to add, try to do it at least by Thursday at noon, so that then I can get that off to the website company that takes care of the website, so we can update the agenda on Friday and have it ready for the weekend and for the meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah,
we will go to.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. President. However, the 3 ordinances that are on the floor were put out I believe the afternoon before the last council meeting. I think all of us, including administration and council, needs to do that. And I believe or thought there was a rule of council that said that they had to be available.
Oh, I wasn't Yeah, I wasn't pointing you out in particular, Mr. Gertz. I just wanted to know that if I think you did it exactly right. Sending it on the 1st, should have
Yes.
gotten it in by the 6th. It's just that I personally didn't get a copy, and no one forwarded to me either. So if you do include it, and I'm not going to, Carla's going to put the agenda together as quickly as she can after this meeting for the next meeting. It'll be sent to me, and any last minute updates will be done by me before I send it off to the website. So that's the way it's, we need to do it. I want only myself communicating with the website for the government pages. And I think you did perfectly by sending it out on the 1st. I just didn't happen to get a copy.
And Tony, I'm sorry, I actually didn't even see, I'm looking at the list now, he isn't included on that. So if I would have seen that, I'm sorry. I just saw that more than myself was included, so I didn't do a fine tooth comb.
I
search.
don't have it in front of me, so I couldn't answer the question.
Do you need me to read anything from it?
Well, we'll get to that as the 4th ordinance. Don't worry about it right now.
Well,
I
that's
do
the
also
next
want to
question.
remind everybody.
Is it a new ordinance or is it replacing the other ordinance?
It's a new ordinance.
It'd be replacing the other one.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't as specific as the one that Mr. Gertz prepared.
Yes, yeah, I thought it was replacing.
Who prepared the first one? Mr. Gertz?
No, I didn't prepare that.
Why aren't we reading? Why are we not reading Patrick's ordinance then?
I think you should read it, or we should table it.
I did talk to Mr. Ross today. He said he has no problem with Mr. Gertz's ordinance.
Okay. That is actually good enough for me. Any grandpa who tells me stuff like that it's just like they used to say on WLW. You heard that from your grandpa? It's the truth.
That's right.
That's right. So I do want to mention that the minutes, again, are all on there, and I will be working on ordinances through the next quarter, the middle quarter, the second quarter of the year here, and we're going to be working back to get minutes on. So getting the website around the government under control here. Carla, will you go ahead and give us our first reading of the second, it's the second reading of our first ordinance.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to execute a 3-year contract with AFSCME Local 1093 and declaring an emergency.
I had a comment.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Mr. Gertz, did you have a comment?
Well, first of all, I'm going to recuse myself. I can't vote on this ordinance. I don't know if I can even vote to suspend, but there's no Exhibit A, as I had pointed out a couple of weeks ago, that there were other issues, and the ordinance is too ambiguous, I believe.
Okay, I do have a motion by Mr. Fischescher.
Yes.
I'll second.
Suspend.
To suspend the rules.
Yes. Okay, motion made by Mr. Fischescher, seconded by Ms. Edichico. To suspend the rule requires a 3rd reading. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
I abstain.
Mr. Lynn,
You're muted,
Mr.
Tom.
Lignon, muted.
Yes.
sorry. Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
I'd like to see the attachments. I have to say no. I'd like to wait until we get the whole package.
Is this is Exhibit A a copy of the contract? Because I have that dated March 2nd, 21. That was emailed.
That's not the
Was
contract.
this sent
I
out
don't
on
think.
an email? Do you know, Katie?
This is it. That's all I have.
I think all that is a synopsis of the changes that were going to be made to the contract. It's not the contract itself. At least what I have also.
Right. I just didn't know if that counted as the Exhibit A. in the ordinance.
I would not think so.
Okay, then I will go ahead and make a point. I don't think I made a point last time to get Mr. Ross to go ahead and send that out, but I will this time. So we'll go to a third reading 2 weeks from now. Unless someone knows that there's a problem with that delay. We will go to our second.
I don't see where that
ordinance
would
then,
be a
which is also
problem.
okay. Go to our second ordinance, which is also a second reading.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to compensate Paul Gallo and Todd Owens for accrued sick leave time and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Second,
Motion made by Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Albrecht to suspend the rule that requires the third reading. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
yes.
Mr. Fish-Escher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico,
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
I think
Second,
that was motion made by Mr. Powell, seconded by Mr. Fish-Escher. No, who was the first motion made by Mr. Lynn?
Mr. Lynn,
He's got the biggest grin there. Seconded by Mr. Fish-Escher to adopt the ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
yes.
Mr. Fish-Escher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance number.
2021-11.
I think it would be valuable for the public to know that I think this is an advantage for the city to allow these men to be paid over a period of years instead of a lump sum immediately. I thought it was a good idea.
At a higher rate.
Okay. All right. The third ordinance we will table at the permission of Mr. Ross, and we will go to the
I think we ought to make a motion.
ordinance.
I think we have to make a motion for that.
Okay, go ahead.
Make a motion to.
I'll make the
table-
motion to table this ordinance.
Randy's about 70
Motion by
seconds behind.
That's why we need to follow. Mr.
Yeah.
Powell's advice.
Randy's slow.
Motion made by Mr. Lindeman. Can I say seconded by Mr. Fish-Escher? To table the ordinance.
Yeah, what the-
For the increases.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fish-Escher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
That table is officially, that ordinance is officially tabled. We will go ahead and read the new ordinance that was added this evening. First reading.
An ordinance directing the increase of salaries for certain positions of individuals who are part of the non-bargaining city employees and declaring an emergency.
I'll move to suspend the rules.
I
I'll
have
second.
a question for Tony.
Yeah.
Go
Was
ahead, Mr. Powell.
Was it your intention to include all the city office employees except for the ones that are in the bargaining unit in this?
I checked with the city clerk and we've had this controversy the last few years. You're probably familiar with it, David. And so it's all, I think there are 10 employees that are part of them that are included in this portion of the non-bargaining unit. The fire chief, police chief, and the assistant fire chief have a separate ordinance, although they're not part of the bargaining unit. They have a separate ordinance that provides for their wages to be adjusted based upon the actions taken by council and negotiations with the police and the fire union. So this deals with all the people who would be not part of the bargaining unit. There was some ambiguities in some past ordinances, but rather than get into that controversy and try to fight that fight again with two separate ordinances, I just went ahead and passed this or prepared this one to include all of the people that we have granted such adjustments in the past, but it was done by two separate ordinances at different times. And now this does establish the same adjustment for a 3-year period, as we've done with the fire department, and I guess ultimately, if it passes the 1099, the union.
All right, Mr. Gertz, if you had something,
Chris, I have a
Mr. Mel Gertz. Go ahead.
question. Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
have
Mr.
not seen the, but I was going to bring up here at the end of the meeting that I was going to make does that include the deputy treasurer's positions as well?
Yeah,
Yes, it does.
yeah.
Okay, I need to look at that. I need to look at that ordinance then, because I was going to tell everybody at the end of the meeting that I was working on an ordinance to give increases to the deputy treasurers that haven't received one in 4 or 5 years. I need to look at your ordinance and see exactly what it says then.
Well, I sent it, I thought Janet, my secretary, sent it out to everyone, Mel, but it's 2.5%. Retroactive the first of this year, 2.5% next year, and 2.5% the third year.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. If I got it, I'm not sure. I don't recall seeing it, so.
I don't.
Got it, Mel.
I'll take a look and get back right away.
You're part of the email, Mel.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and vote to suspend the rules or whatever, wherever we are. I'm not sure at this point.
Well, I mean, it's a moot point. If we want to pass it the way it is, it's up to council.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can call the question.
All I need is a motion.
Well, I made a motion to suspend the rules, I thought. I can't remember.
Second.
Yeah, I think there was. It was Mr. Well, I know the first one was Mr. Powell and Mr. Fischescher. You made a motion, Mr. Gertz, to
Suspend the
accept the
rule.
ordinance.
So suspend the rules.
Okay, who was second?
Albright.
Yes, I did announce that. So I'll take a roll call on that
Mr. Powell,
motion.
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
A motion passed.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by
Second.
Mr. Lynn, seconded by Mr.
Lindeman,
Lindeman to adopt the ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs.
Way to go,
Edichico.
Brandy.
Yes.
That
Yes.
motion is adopted. I mean, that ordinance is adopted. Ordinance number.
2021-12.
And I
Chris.
just want to thank Tony for
Chris.
making that ordinance and clearing that up and specifically mentioning everybody's names. It does make it much clearer, and I appreciate you putting work into that.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Any
point out,
other-
Chris. Chris, I was
Okay.
going to point out that the main difference between Patrick's ordinance and Tony's was the fact that Tony named everybody's names. So it does make it very clear. Right, Tom. Thank you.
Great. Any other business?
I would like to have our discussion about when setting a goal to get back into chambers. I'll put it out there that just to make a goal, why don't we say on or before the first meeting in July to be back in chambers?
That sounds good. I'm going for maybe my first dose tomorrow. I'm not sure. Hopefully I'll get the Johnson & Johnson, but who knows? I don't know what the mask mandates and that'll be like by then, but that sounds like a good date to shoot for.
Well, I want to make a comment that I agree with Dave.
I-
I think we should go back to having caucus meetings every week, not just every first and third, because I have a list of things here I'd like to know what's happening, but I really don't want to get into them tonight at this point in time. And the thing that Dave's pointing out, I think by this meeting tonight, it's obvious we need to do something better than we're doing, because people are either got poor equipment or it's not working or they're stuttered, and I don't know, it's pathetic trying to keep up. I agree with you, Dave. We got a good idea. I'll vote in favor of that.
Yeah, I
Any
noticed
other
that
comments?
tonight. I noticed that Mel, I was missing about every other word that Mel said. So I'd have to look at the report to actually see what he was talking about. And Randy, again, he seems to be about, in life and in
Yeah.
general, about 7 seconds behind everybody else. I love you, Randy.
I've been moving a little slow lately, Don.
Lately.
Well, it probably has the biggest effect on what I have to say, because I start talking and then I hear someone talking, and that's not their fault. It's just the delay fault. So any other comments?
We're going to try
I
to
don't know if,
get the 1st of July. Is that right?
well, I don't think there's a motion or anything here. I think it's just a discussion at this point, unless someone wants to make a motion, but
Just setting a goal at this point, Tony. Nothing set. If we don't have a goal, we've got nothing to strive to.
so you're planting a seed is what you're doing.
I am.
A seed for thought.
I think we need to start headed that way. And I think if we have that date in mind, and then as circumstances change and we can get in sooner, even better. But I think July 1st is the first, not July 1st necessarily, but our first regular meeting in July to be in chambers.
July 6th.
That'll be 3 months from. There's only a few people on that have probably not been vaccinated at this point.
All those young people.
We would still have to follow all the state's requirements for distancing and masks.
As an alternative to this, I have to talk to the ICRC. I had a casual conversation about it. We all don't have to do this. Some of us could be in chambers and they could still do a virtual meeting, which would allow those that have a worry about attending the meeting physically, they could be on the virtual meeting, and the others who want to go to the council chambers, which would then allow citizen input. They could sign up and separate them in the hall, or someone can serve as the person to allow them. They could become more personally involved. I have to talk to the ICRC in more detail, but I haven't had time. I might look into that too.
Well,
Dave.
I really don't see that I have an option if we get more than a majority at City Hall. I'll have to go to City Hall, because we're not going to have individual cameras on individual people's, so that I can tell who's talking, and I can't tell voices. You can already tell that. I can't hear the difference between some people's voices. But then again, the people who aren't in chambers I'll have the same problem back that way too. So do I have to have a computer in front of me where I'm listening to and watching? I don't know. I'll have to work this out, but you give me 3 months to work on it. Thank you.
Well, that's primarily why I set the goal as far out as we did, because I figured there would probably be some logistics to figure out. Plus the mandates very likely will be changing as we move forward and more people receive the vaccines. So it's my hope that maybe it can be more of a normal meeting by then. I'm no guarantee, but that's my hope at this point.
My understanding of what is happening,
Right.
maybe Dave could explore this, or maybe he knows the answer. The thing that was brought up at the meeting and the ordinance or resolution, or whatever it was a few weeks ago, it merely allows us to vote virtually rather than physically have to be in a meeting. I believe that the law previous to that was you had to be in chambers to vote. You couldn't call your vote in or do those things. And they made an exception through July of this year. It doesn't prevent us from being in chambers. It's an authorization, just as the taxes were extended to May 17th rather than the 15th. It's not a requirement that we have to meet virtually. There's about 15 communities of the 20 or so that are on the ICRC programming that are already meet in chambers.
Mel, does the extension to May 17th is just for filing, not for the taxes that you might owe? You still have to pay those by April 15th?
No. It's for, for the extension is for everything.
Okay.
It's the same as the state and the federal government.
Okay, those are extended for paying your taxes and for filing. Okay, just
Right.
wanted to clear that up, make sure that we had that clear. Unless there's anything else, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
Hey, just to let everyone know,
Then
the
this
Reds
meeting-
are averaging 9 runs a game. 9 runs a game. Go Reds.
Don't say that too loud. They'll make games 14 innings long, so they'll have to average 14. So,
Tom,
all right.
Tom, get the All-Star game moved back to Atlanta and I'll watch him.
Maybe they should move it here.
That's okay then. I might watch it then.
See you later.
Good night.
This meeting is adjourned, officially adjourned.
Danny, you need to check
Thank
your phone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Dennis, Albrecht,
Yes.
Bye.
you need to check your phone.
Okay. My phone's not working.
Oh, I just texted you. You want to go fishing on Friday?
I can't.